Satisfy your emotion. Buju Banton, walk like a champion, talk like a champion. What a piece of body, girl. Tell me where you get it from. Knock on your entrance. Rum, pam, 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 pam. Buju Banton. Buju out, y'all. Buju is planning a tour of the West Indies, Trinidad, Tobago, Grenada, of course, Yardman, Jamaica. Yeah. Walk like a champion. Talk like a champion. What a piece of body, girl. Tell me where you get that from. Knock on your entrance. Rum, pam, 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 pam. Yeah. Okay. Little something. Get your blood flowing. Disalign your chakras. Knock your chakras out of place. Before that, we had Anthony B. Raid the Bond. Everybody wants to... Wait. No, he didn't say no. Don't nobody want to plant the corn. Everybody want to raid the bond. I love that song. And then we had Sizzla Kalonji, Till Samar, a lot of agricultural themed roots reggae music. I didn't plan it that way, but that's how it comes out sometimes. And I totally feel that Raid the Barn song. I can't even listen to it. I don't want to choke up on the air. Because I know that feeling. Because don't nobody want to plant the corn, but everybody want to raid the barn. Don't nobody want to till the soil, but they all want the spoils. So, you know, but the struggle continues, and we will win without a doubt. But let's proceed. Of course, as I announced during the intro, this is the Bro Diallo Show. Today is the year of your Lord, 2019, February 15th. Also, between February 15th is kind of the day that some people recognize as Frederick Douglass's birthday. Frederick Douglass didn't have his exact birthday recorded because he was a piece of chattel property. And generally, people who own chattel, cattle, cows, pigs, Africans, did not really, put too much stake in the day. Often they didn't keep records of the birth of African children. Also, I'm sure that was a tax hustle, trying to conceal assets, sick people. But beyond that, so even though Frederick would be asked about his birthday and his lineage, and he said he knew for certain that he was born in the month of February, around about 1818. So some people, February 14th, February 18th, 1818 is the way we have to pretty much recognize the birth of one of the greatest African orators, one of the greatest African writers, one of the greatest African abolitionists born to us, Frederick Douglass. So happy Frederick Douglass Day, whatever day that may be. Shout out to Fred. And I know some people like to give Fred some hate because later in life he married a white woman, and some of y'all black eugenicists don't play that. And if you that conscious and you that real with it, to the hill with it, and keep it real with it, I appreciate you, but I ain't gonna write him off on that because I think his contributions cannot be overshadowed, outweighed, or dismissed, and I don't think that his later marrying a white woman in any way diminishes or takes away from that. So, but if y'all want to take the revolution all the way under the sheets, I understand that. I don't condemn or denounce y'all for that. And if I had y'all level of purity, I wish I did, but I guess I don't. Moving on. Frederick Douglass, but no, let's not get too deep into Fred, because I like to do Fred on around the 4th of July. That's when Fred really had some things to say, when he was really dropping science for the people then. But I digress. Anyway, whatever your day was, one of our great underappreciated, I think, ancestors, and if you would read this man's writing, considering the fact that he was denied a formal education, there's this mythology about Abraham Lincoln learned how to read and write by using some coal, writing on the back of a shovel. There's some mythology about George Washington cutting down the cherry tree and not being able to tell a lie, and all these scumbag, racist, enslavers, white nationalists, white aggressors, genocidal land stealers. We got all these great myths about that man, but in our era, from our ancestors, were truly great. Were truly men who cared about freedom and democracy and liberation and humanity. And we don't have to, pretend, especially days coming up and the time where they recognize Lincoln and George Washington's birthday, both of them, if they were alive today and engaged in the same behaviors that they did when in their own time, they'd be in prison for life. But if Frederick Douglass was here today, he'd still be a true hero. You don't need to whitewash him or clean up his behaviors throughout history. But I continue to digress. Yesterday it was announced, no, day before yesterday. I always forget because, I got a day between the shows. I do a Friday morning I do a Friday morning show. But I do a Monday morning, Tuesday morning, let's try that one more again. I do a Monday morning, Wednesday morning, and Friday morning show. So day on, day off, day on, day off. But the news cycle don't stop. So I'm always, doing like Dick Gregory said, watching white folks, studying white folks and their atrocities. And again, to my white listeners, yes, I'm blaming you too. Yes, it's you, all of y'all. Because when a brother snatch a gold chain, when a brother run up in a bank to collect his reparations, every black man in the sector, every black man in the nation gets blamed. So we've been dealing with collective blame and collective punishment since we arrived in these shores. Y'all can get a little something of that. You can take a little bit of it. We took it and endured, so I'm sure y'all can. So all white people. I watch white folks, study white folks, and white folks' atrocities. And it was found out, and I made this statement, and I have to admit, when I do wrong, I made a statement that I regret making. Not that I think it influenced people's behavior, but I really hate that I said this. I really hate that I was wrong about this, or I don't know if I was wrong or right. Let me just say what I did. When Obama exited office, he exited the presidential office with one of the highest approval ratings of any president. And then what they have found over the years, no matter how unpopular the president is, there's always this presidential nostalgia. Because people become familiar with this man, this king, this ruler, this dictator, whatever, however you identify the president of the United States. He's definitely not a representative, democratic servant of the people anymore. That's long gone, if it was ever the case. But there's always this resurgence. Even Nixon had a revival. Even people started feeling nostalgic about Nixon, one of the most unpopular presidents in his time. And Ford, old Gerald Ford, people started feeling nostalgic. Even now, to this day, Jimmy Carter, who was one of the most mocked and despised our last so-called truly liberal president, because, the two Democratic presidents after Carter were neoliberal. Even he, with Habitat for Humanity, he was beloved and had a resurgence. But Carter messed up. He turned around and wrote a book that told the truth about Israel and said that Israel is an apartheid state. So then they had to re-erase him. So he lost his nostalgia. But even George W. Bush, the mass murderer, the liar, the terrorist, the so-called compassionate conservative neocon Project for a New American Century, with he done killed or responsible for the deaths of over 1 million innocent people. Now he got Michelle Obama grinding all up on him, sucking on his candy. So every president has this resurgence of popularity and love. So I knew that when Obama left office, he would continue his rock star status. And I had stated that when Trump comes into office, when he engages in the identical behaviors as Obama did, all of you people, because of the historic election of Obama, and let me go on record as saying this, it is a tragedy that the only thing truly historic about Obama's election is his skin color. None of his legislation, none of his policies, none of his administrative appointments, nothing else he did was truly historic. Everything Obama did in office was status quo. He walked the line. He preserved and expanded the empire. He did everything a white president or a white elected official would do. And some of y'all love him for that, because y'all still got this ego trip, this self-esteem issue where you think you need to demonstrate to white people your worthiness. And the best way to demonstrate to white people our worthiness, to demonstrate and prove our humanity to white people, is to prove that we can behave just like they do, even though their behaviors are subhuman. Doesn't make sense to me, but hey, they got the printing press that prints the dollars. So they define reality. But I digress. More on that later. Anyway, it is truly a tragedy, and tell this to your children, tell this to your grands, that it is disgusting, it is unacceptable, it is a tragedy, it is a betrayal, that the only thing historic about Obama's presidency, the only thing truly historic about Obama's presidency is his skin color and his hair texture. That's disgusting. And I don't even know if Obama, I don't know what his hair texture is anymore. I had one opportunity to be in the same room as Obama, and I left. I couldn't sit through that. I just couldn't have this man. I wasn't going to do no one-man protest. I wasn't trying to have grandmothers, throwing haymakers and purses at me. I didn't want to fight because it was Obama Love Fest down there, right downtown Chicago at the McCormick Place. And I finally slithered in to see Obama face to face, but I left. I just was like, man, what's the point? But anyway, Obama. My wife has met Obama. I'll ask her. Call him. Erica, could you tell me what Obama's hair texture was? Because that's what I really need to know. That's all because I don't know. But I'm saying the only thing that stands out about him is his hair color, his skin color, and potentially his hair texture. I don't know if he got good hair. I don't know if he got any in his family. I don't know what his hair looked like, but it looked like it's some black hair. Looks like he got a little texture to it. But I don't know. He's the president. President can't have kitchen in the back. But anyway, I continue to digress. All I'm saying is let history go down and say that we do not celebrate the first black president because if the only thing black about him is his skin color, not his policy, and as I listed before, then it is a tragedy, it is a betrayal, it is disgusting. And I digress, because we would expect someone with a history, even if y'all like to say he's not a descendant of slave because his father is Kenyan. He's a descendant of colonized. He is a descendant of an oppressed people. He came up in the United States where he said he would hear his own white relatives say nigger and disparage other black people. He knew what it was like to be isolated and under overt and subtle, covert and white aggression. So he could relate to the struggle, if not historically, but it is, because like I said, he didn't come from chattel slavery, but I don't know, colonization. Father had abandonment issues. Father was murdered. I suspect his father was murdered by the Kenyan government. But that's a whole nother discussion, y'all. We can get into that. He was hit by a car and didn't die, and then later hit by a car again. They kept hitting him with cars until he died. But that's a whole nother thing. Unless we're going to talk about Phil Valentine. Dr. Phil Valentine said that Malcolm X was actually Barack Obama's father. And that's why, if you look at his time in Indonesia, but I'm not that deep. If y'all want to know about that, holler at Dr. Phil Valentine, or maybe I'll call Phil and get him on the show. But he said that Obama was the descendant of Malcolm X, direct descendant. But I didn't bring my tinfoil hat this morning. I don't know if y'all got y'all's on the ready, so we can't go into that reptilian Illuminati territory, because I ain't got my protective tinfoil hat to stop out the brain waves, the cosmic brain waves. But anyway, going on, I'm down too far down a rabbit hole. What I wanted to say was my proclamation as Obama exited the office and Teflon Donald entered the office was, I said, if Trump engages in the same atrocities that Obama did, and y'all start to protest Trump's atrocities, but y'all didn't protest Obama's atrocities, I was going to call y'all out for it. And to my disappointment and my surprise and my glee, y'all are just as capable of ignoring Trump's murderous atrocities as y'all were Obama's. Y'all don't care about who the president mass murders, who the president slaughters, the ecosystems he destroys. Y'all don't care either way. I guess local issues is all that matters. The people dying in your name, dying to protect your freedom, dying to make sure that you can get, below market rate disposable goods, new iPhone cases, and cheap oil and gas. You don't care who got to die overseas. It's really disgusting. So I was secretly hoping that you would be hypocrites. I have to admit, I'm not a pure, like I said, I'm not ideologically pure. I was really hoping, now that Trump's in office, this unpopular, despicable, disgusting, out of shape man, Trump said he was 230 pounds. Lying, bro, that dude just can't not lie. Anyway, I was really hoping that, now, when Trump goes and mass slaughters people, the people are going to protest. The feminists, the liberals, the vegans, and the only people that were on it, that are on and down Trump's throat is, maybe Medea Benjamin with Cold Pink. That's why the only organization that banged on Obama and Obama's atrocities as hard as they bang on Trump and every other president that show up protesting, fighting, getting the word out. Go check out Cold Pink. But no other organizations, even the liberals, even the congresswomen and congressmen that hate Trump, the Democratic Congress, Nancy Pelosi, even Ocasio-Cortez, ain't nobody said nothing about the mass slaughter. The New York Times reported that the U.S. is bombing Libya again. The U.S. is bombing Libya yet again. Because now, since Obama had Gaddafi overthrown, since Obama had Gaddafi sodomized with a knife on national television, now Libya is not only an open-air slave market, it is a hotbed for so-called Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and Islamic extremist territory, headquarters, organization, where they can plot and execute so-called terrorist attacks throughout the region. When none of that was going on under Gaddafi. None of it. And so now the United States is routinely bombing Libya. Nobody's saying nothing. Also, it was reported that in 2018, last year, the U.S. engaged in more bombings than in any other time in the entire war on terror. Trump is committing more massacres than Bush and Obama combined. And you don't understand how massive of a feat that is. You don't understand what it would take for Trump to meet or surpass Obama's murder record. Obama is a mass murderer. And I hate that my grandma and my great aunties and the elders in my family have so much love and concern for this man, because I think if the media did its true job. Now, they're not going to listen to me. I've been crazy since I was born. These women changed my diapers. They're not going to listen to me. But if some of those trusted voices in the media would really just take the cameras to the war zone, like Dar Jamil did, and go there and show what they did. Maybe my grandmother wouldn't go into her Social Security and it sent Obama $20 here, $50 there. I hate that my elders in my family, I really hate that they think that this is a good man. This man is a mass murderer. And if you want to try to say Obama ain't killed nobody, neither did Hitler. Hitler gave orders. And he sat in comfortable leather chairs in the chancellor's office and gave orders to everybody else. And guess what? By on white folks' laws, that makes you culpable. If I sit here and I tell someone go kill that person, then I am as equally, if not more, culpable. In fact, when there's a murder for hire, if they can get the murderer to turn over on the person who hired them, they routinely give the person who gave the order to kill more time than the person who did the killing. So the person who does the killing is not as guilty or culpable or responsible as the person who orders the killing. So by that definition, not mine, but by white folks' definition that they impose on us, they got black men locked up all over this country right now for life, triple, quadruple life for air quote conspiracy. They didn't even engage in the crime directly. They just simply gave the order, instruction, or the planned out the crime. So by all the white folks' judicial definitions, Obama is a mass murderer. Now, like I said, and I know what y'all like to do to excuse Obama, y'all like to say, oh, so was every other president. You damn skippy. But for the first time in world history, and since black folks been in the United States, since the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation, since the freaking signing of the U.S. Constitution, for the first time, black people as citizens, we supported the slaughter. We celebrated the slaughter. We embraced the mass murderer. If you look at black polling, if you look at black political history, black people have always been the most anti-war demographic in the United States. There was never a time where the majority, there was a higher percentage of black people supporting a U.S. war effort than there was white people. White people, the white voting public was always more pro-war, more pro-intervention, more pro-bring democracy to the monkeys than black people were, because black people, we understood that, the officer friendly was a myth. And we understood, since officer friendly, since the police aren't here to protect us, the military ain't going over there to protect nobody. But Obama, for the first time in U.S. history, when Obama said he wanted to go into Libya, black people said, I trust Obama. I support Obama's desire to go into Libya. When Obama said he wanted to put boots on the ground in Syria, more white people said, no, you shouldn't do this, than black folks. And maybe white folks said, we don't trust the colored boy with the bomb. Maybe it was simply racism. They love the blood, but we want a good white man to draw the blood. In fact, history has found that out. They just didn't trust Obama. It wasn't that they were anti-war. They were anti-Obama. But hell, whatever prevents people from being slaughtered on an industrial scale, I'll take it. So Obama not only went into office and was corrupt, he corrupted the black population. He made black people, for the first time in this country, the majority champions of imperialism and atrocities. But anyway, I was kind of hoping, even though I was mocking, saying, hey, now y'all let Obama go around the world and commit mass slaughter and didn't protest. The peace movement, remember the peace movement, the anti-war movement, the people who were challenging the validity of the war on terror under George W. Bush, they all went to bed when Obama was elected. They all disappeared and faded into the background. Well, they went and started the Occupy movement. And then I said, because I thought to myself, everybody hates Trump. Even the Republicans hate Trump. So when Trump goes up and continues and takes the baton from Obama, who took the baton from George W. Bush, I thought they're going to start the peace movement. All these people who protested the war under Bush, now there's a new Republican in, they're going to come back. And I was going to call out their hypocrisy when they came back. But I would have been happy if they came back. I was expecting a resurgence of the anti-war movement. I was expecting a resurgence of critical resistance to U.S. imperialism, because it's Trump, an imperialist you don't like. And where y'all didn't come back. So not only did I not to get to call out your hypocrisy, there's nobody giving any voice to the slaughter. There used to be like liberal radio programmers that every day when Bush was in office, they go on the air and list off the bombing rates. They go on the air and list all the U.S. soldiers, our boys that died overseas. That stopped under Obama, and it didn't come back under Trump. In Afghanistan alone, last year, Trump dropped 7,400 bombs on Afghanistan. That's 20 bombings a day from drones. Afghanistan is smaller than Texas. Can you imagine? Texas, and these aren't, firecrackers. These are ballistic missiles. He's going over a territory that not only is it smaller than Texas, its infrastructure dates back to the 17th or 16th century. They don't have a modern rail service. They don't have a modern sewage system. They don't have a highway system. Afghanistan is a 16th or 17th century infrastructure. Most of the people there are peasant farmers. What's left to bomb in Afghanistan? They are just literally finding people out herding goats. Finding people trying to scrape the living off the side of a mountain. And they are just blowing them to paste. spending billions of dollars to drop money on a country that has one of the poorest countries on the face of the earth. 7,400 bombing raids on a country smaller than Texas. That's more than 20 bombing raids a day. That's just Afghanistan. That doesn't count Syria. That doesn't count Libya. That doesn't count the active war zone. And then the active war zones that you can go online and read in the corporate media, that doesn't even freaking count the clandestine wars and the proxy wars. The U.S. is one of the bloodiest, most murderous, bloodthirsty empires on the face of the earth, and we here mad because Cardi B got 2 Grammys. There's more outrage about Cardi B getting Grammys and J-Lo doing a Soul Train or whatever Motown tribute than there is about the mass slaughter being done in our name. You American descendants of slaves, you black people who hold U.S. citizenship, we are culpable too. Along with the white folks. If we don't make our voices known, I don't know what's left for me to do. Everybody knows where I stand. The rest of y'all see a person in, I just saw somebody, I ain't gonna say no names, online talking about, my son just joined the Navy. Oh God, and you so proud of your son joining a genocidal racist army, military. I have to tell you, I have to say, if either of my sons join the U.S. military, that's grounds for disownership. Let me tell you right now, Sekou Oromo, you are forbidden to join the U.S. Armed Forces. If that's nothing else, if you can do nothing else as a black person, even if the U.S. military did everything they claim they did, even if the U.S. military spread democracy, fought for freedom, protected us from terrorists, which the U.S. military does nothing that the commercials say it's do, an army of one and forge men into soldiers and warriors for protection of democracy. Even if that was true, black people shouldn't be in the military. Even the Black Panther Party was like, black men should be exempt. We don't owe this country nothing but an ass whooping. We ain't got reparations. So even if we had full citizenship, even if the country was a just, truly democratic country, we still should shun the military service. Our ancestors paid any debt we could ever owe to this country. Our ancestors paid it 10 times over. In fact, the country owes us a debt, so we shouldn't be offering our blood, our young, able-bodied men and women up to the armed services. And that's all. And when I was working, that's probably why they didn't renew my contract. When I was working with the youth, and I'm teaching them urban agricultural skills, but every day I talk to them, don't go to the military. And I talked to a couple of young folks out of enlisting. And it wasn't hard. It was hard under Obama to talk young black people out of the military because they wanted to go fight for Obama's freedom and spread Obama's freedom across the world. But when I told them, your commander-in-chief will be Donald Trump if you go to the military, they were like, I ain't going to no military. Maybe after 4 years when he's out. So it got a little easier to talk black youth from joining the military. The U.S. military is the engine of omnicide. And omnicide means you kill everything. They don't just kill peasants. They don't just kill people. They destroy ecosystems for generations. To this day, let me tell you something. I don't even care if they rebuild Iraq to look like Dubai. Never go there. Iraq is a nuclear radioactive wasteland. From the chemical and bioweapons that were dumped during the First War and the Gulf War syndrome to the depleted uranium and the alpha particles that you can inhale, that are in the soil, that are in the water, that every time there's rains or there's some windstorm that they get stirred back up. And they don't even classify it as that. And then they're having young men and women enlist into the armed forces and go station them over there. Then they come back sick, even though they never saw any combat. Let me tell y'all something. It's really disgusting. And I like to know, I was playing games. That's what I get for playing games. My mama said, hey, don't play with people. I'm like, playing is fun. Why wouldn't I want to play? But let me tell you something. I really thought I would have me some good times. And right now, I could go up to people and be real slick and say, hey, I see you out here protesting Trump, but guess what Obama did? And I would use the resistance to Trump as an opportunity to highlight Obama's atrocities and highlight the hypocrisy of the peace movement. But I didn't get to do that because the peace movement is still dormant. People are as effective and willing to ignore Trump's atrocities as they are Obama's atrocities. This is utterly disgusting. And the same people that look at World War II history, the same people that look back and say, "Oh, how could they have done that? Oh, the concentration camps. Oh, what was wrong with people back then?" You look back at slavery. Oh, look at they took babies from mothers. Oh, or you look back at the Jim Crow era. Oh, the lynchings, and thousands of people would show up to lynchings, and other people would just sit at home and do nothing. When you look at all the horrendous atrocities throughout history, if you want to know how all the so-called good people sat by and did nothing, look at your damn self, because now you're doing the same thing. And 2 to 3 generations from now, when they recount this history, when the body count is totaled up, when all of the environmental ecosystem damage is totaled up, when all of the radioactive red zones are lined out, people are going to be like, what were people doing? What was going on? How could people just let that happen? Let me tell you why. Because they were mad Cardi B got 2 Grammys and J-Lo did, a Chicken Dan to Motown song. And that's why. That's what they were focusing on. That's how. So back when our ancestors were being mass slaughtered, oh, the Native Americans, the Trail of Tears, and they killed hundreds of millions of natives. How could that happen? Where were the good people? They were right where you are right now. The Afghanis, the North Africans, Central Africans, the Congolese, the Haitians, the Venezuelans. They are the modern day slaves, Indians, Jews, all the people that you shed tears and pretend to give a damn about, all the people that you pretend that if you were around back then, if you were around during chattel slavery, if you were around during the German Holocaust, if you were around during the slaughter of the Native Americans, if you were around during the height of colonialism, the mass murder of the Herero tribe, during the Mau Mau rebellion and the British atrocities trying to suppress the Mau Mau uprising. If you were around back in those days, you would have been active. You would have said something. You would have stand up. To hell you would have. If you weren't an active participant in the slaughter, you would have sat by and let it happen. How do I know? Because you're allowing slaughters to happen under your nose right now. And you don't give a damn as long as the right person you think is worthy of the Grammy. The award shows for pimps and hoes and every other hypocrite to show off their clothes. I don't give a damn. They can give Cardi B every Grammy. I don't know who gives a damn. Y'all already know these people can't season chicken. They don't have good taste. Who cares who they pick for what their awards? We got other issues. And I'm just frustrated that I see more people communicating and sharing stories about who they think was worthy or unworthy of a Grammy than I see about people literally being turned into paste. Palestine. The list goes on. Like I said, you set up a map of the world and you throw a dart. And you're going to hit on an atrocity. Even in the first world, the Indians are still being slaughtered. In the United States, they're still in concentration camps. They're not reservations. Like Dale Jones said, reservation is something you get at a hotel. That's a concentration camp. Native Americans, black people are still under genocidal oppression right here in the United States. Anywhere you throw a dart, even if it don't land on land, if you hit the dart and you hit the oceans, the oceanic dead zones, the dead coral reefs, you hit the North or South Pole, wherever you hit on the map, you're going to find an existential problem that is a direct product of Western imperialism, white folks. And yeah, they coerce us to participate. They went around the world and say, hey, we have this wonderful system called capitalism, and it's going to bring you democracy. It's wonderful. And everywhere they went, in Africa, Middle East, Asia, everybody told them, we don't want that, man. Hey, do your thing. We got our way, you got your way. Nope. Tell you what, you don't worship our God, you don't set up our governing system, you don't accept our economy, then it's rape, murder, slaughter time. When there's some people are like, fine, we'll accept all of that. We'll take on your God, we'll worship your God, we'll accept your economy, and we'll set up your governing system. And they're like, ha, trick, it's still rape, murder, slaughter time. Show me wrong. Go find me a history book. Go get a history book, even written by white historians out of the Ivy League. Show me where I'm lying. Damned if you did, damned if you didn't, and we still damned. And now our thing was, well, we want to get integrated and full equality. And the only thing that does is make you complicit. When you get equality with your oppressor, you are equal with your oppressor. So instead, we thought we get freedom when we get integration. But no, we were coerced into participating in the rape, murder, slaughter. But I digress. It's really disgusting. The United States is priming itself. The U.S. war machine is primed for open slaughter, genocide in Venezuela. There's already genocidal sanctions, which is a war crime. Sanctions are an act of war. If China came out tomorrow and said, we're going to stop all exports to America from China, the United States would call that an act of war. The United States would go to the UN and try to get a resolution to compel China to reopen its exports to the United States. If that didn't work, then they would mobilize the U.S. military to go there and destroy that regime. Because sanctions are an act of war. And you cannot have an act of war. You cannot declare war unless the UN gives you permission to. And the UN is heavily biased towards the West. Like I said, if I was the head of an African country or a non-aligned country, of a so-called third world country, if I was the head, first thing declaration I would do is leave the UN. The UN is disrespectful and ineffective for when it comes to justice and holding the Security Council nations accountable. The UN is voluntary colonialism. But anyway, the United States has a blockade around Venezuela. The United States is intimidating other nations, such as Germany, such as France, and telling them, if you trade, if you do deals, if you export medicine to Venezuela, we will attack and sanction your country too. And if you are a company that attempts to proceed and do business with Venezuela, we will do the same. But then, of course, like with Trump, there's always backroom deals. But they are allowing some U.S. corporations to go in and extract some oil and generate some revenues. Also, there are sanctions on things like insulin. Now, what they tell us about sanctions is like the Iraq war sanctions under Bill Clinton. What he told us was it was going to prevent, or the sanctions against North Korea and Iran, they tell us it is prevent those nations from developing weapons of mass destruction. So they have these aluminum tubes. Y'all remember the aluminum tubes? There's certain construction and technological resources that can be weaponized. You receive these goods, even fertilizer. They can make, primitive fertilizer bombs. But how do you justify sanctioning or banning the import of rice or insulin for diabetics? How do you weaponize rice or insulin? Even if you say we're not going to send gunpowder, we won't even send it like industrial fertilizer. Not that I agree with it, but if they were trying to pretend to be something other than genocidal mass murderers, if they were trying to pretend like they really wanted to help the people of Venezuela instead of hurt, because white folks have this thing where they say when a country decides that it's not going to govern its country in the way that Europe or the United States wants it to, they say they make the economy scream. And so there are people there dying, going into diabetic comas. There are people there that get, just like in Iraq, just like in Cuba, just like in every other place that comes under illegal U.S. sanctions. I'd say a good 10% of the Trump administration, if not the entire State Department, should be up on charges right now. There are some pencil pushers that might be able to, that shouldn't be arrested if they testify against their colleagues. But the State Department is complicit in the mass murder, the unnecessary suffering of millions of people. And we sitting back. Oh, Maduro. Let me tell you something. By the time Americans, a good percentage of U.S. citizens know the name of a foreign leader, you know that guy's being set up for a slaughter. You ask any American, name a Latin American leader. All they know, oh, Castro and Maduro. They don't know any other Central American, Latin American, or Caribbean leader. Because we only learn leaders' names when the U.S. is ready to murder them. We all found out who Noriega was. Nobody knew who Panama. Who's governing? Who's the president of Panama right now? Don't nobody know. We all remember who. Can you name a Latin American? Yeah, I remember Noriega. N-O-R-E. Nori. We all know him. We all know Saddam. Can't name anybody else. Because by the time U.S. masses know the name of a foreign leader, that foreign leader is being demonized and set up for murder, coup d'etat, extortion, bribery, or some other dirty trick. And let me tell you something else about Venezuela. Right now, the Venezuelan traitors, they got this man down there named Juan Guaido, who Donald Trump says the elected president, Maduro, is not the president, and they pick literally some random dude from the Venezuelan Congress and say, we recognize you as the leader. Juan Guaido is a traitor to his nation. He's cooperating with foreign hostile interests. I don't know why Maduro does not put Juan Guaido in jail. In fact, at this stage, when your country is under direct and hostile internal and external subversion, it's time to go to martial law. Venezuela needs to be under state of emergency. I don't understand why these leftist presidents, these leftist rulers, these leftist regimes don't take it to the mat. It's time to start taking heads, Maduro. What the hell are you waiting on? It's time to arm the masses of the people. It's time to set up guerrilla factions. What is he doing? He's going to the UN. The UN can't help you, Maduro. These public statements about, America is a criminal nation. We know it. And there's no one available to hold the U.S. accountable for its crime. You better look at Palestine. You better look at the Afghanis. You better look at the Iraqi insurgents. It's time to go into the hills. It's time to dig the trenches, Maduro. You should arrest Juan Guaido and all of the opposition leaders. And let's keep it. If it was me, let me not say what I would do. And this is the same thing I said about Aristide in Haiti. The moment that you had months to prepare for the U.S. Marines arriving at your shore. Let me tell you, Ronald Reagan and many other U.S. Listen, there's only one thing that the U.S. understands, Maduro, if you're listening. And if you're not listening, it's someone who can translate this to Spanish and tell them. The United States understands MAD, M-A-D, mutually assured destruction. The only thing that's going to protect Venezuela now is to demonstrate to the West that they have the equal capacity and will to kill them as the Western imperialists have to kill them. And what you will have to do, because you cannot withstand a standard engagement with the U.S. armed forces. But you've seen throughout history, and right now, there are asymmetrical warfare going on that the United States is not able to endure. And you can fight the U.S. and all the imperial forces and their lackeys in Colombia, their lackeys in Brazil, and tell them, throw down the tomahawk. Tell them just like the Taliban said. Throw down the tomahawk. Let's get down. Let's do this. You coming into our land. We know our territory. We know where the resources are. We will end this before it starts. And right now, the United States is in Afghanistan, even after dropping 7,400 bombs, dropping 20 major bombs. And those are the known. Because for every bomb that they drop that gets reported to the CNN, that gets reported to New York Times, there is another bomb that goes off that is clandestine. Understand that you have the Pentagon, which has its own force of military drones and bombings. But then you have the NSA and the CIA that have their own military. They have their own Air Force, and they have a black budget, so they don't have to report their bombs. So I'm pretty sure 7,000 bombs is more than 20 or 30,000 bombs when you really look at it. When you go into the clandestine war. Remember when they were in Vietnam and they had a whole separate war in Laos and Cambodia? And everybody was, oh, Vietnam. They were bombing the whole region. They weren't limited to one country. They used the Vietnam War as coverage for other wars. So I'm telling you, I don't understand what Maduro, you need to take off them damn ties, take off them damn suits, and do like Hugo Chavez. See, Hugo Chavez, that preceded Maduro, he understood. You know, Hugo would show up in military fatigues. He was like 4'3", little pudgy, little, pale, Papa Smurf looking dude. But he understood. He's like, y'all step to this country. What it's going to be is a quagmire. I'm going to fight you to a daytime. I'm going to fight you to a standstill. And I'm going to force U.S. soldiers and the U.S. military to spend hundreds of millions of trillions of dollars to subdue this country. And everywhere you go, every township, when you take over one town, another town's going to have a major uprising. And then when you have to shunt your resources to the next town, that the town you just shunted resources is going to have an uprising. And you're going to spend money, you're going to lose lives, and you're going to be bogged down here. And if you're bogged down in Venezuela, then you can't go and fight in the Middle East. Just like when you were bogged down in the Middle East, you had so much trouble controlling the Latin America. That's what Che Guevara said. That's what Kwame Nkrumah said, revolutionary warfare. You got to have simultaneous uprisings all over. That's where the African Revolution failed and the Haitian Revolution in America failed, and it succeeded because you would have these isolated uprisings. If you had an uprising on dozens of plantations at once, it's over. But you get one plantation uprising, and then they suppress that one. They play whack-a-mole with our ancestors. But if all the moles come up at once, but in Haiti, they had a nationwide uprising all at the same time. That's what you need if we're going to overthrow Western imperialism. Even if you love, I love my iPhone, and I love the Grammys, and you love all the wonderful things that white domination gives to you, all the trinkets and treats. If you love Gucci that much, even if you are that sick and empty inside, think about the ecosystems. Because the air quality don't give a damn how much money. There's only so many filters you can set up in your mansion. There's only so many toxins you can filter out of the water. There's only so many pieces of pure soil left where you can grow your organic heirloom seed, pumpkins and strawberries. So even if you have all this money, what good is fiat on a dying planet? We should have stopped the U.S. before it went into Iraq. We should have stopped the Afghan war. Y'all should have stopped Vietnam from previous generations. We should have stopped Libya. We should have stopped the numerous invasions of Haiti. We should have stopped the Panama War. We can stop the Venezuelan attack. And if we can't stop it, if U.S. citizens are just too fat, stupid, and lazy to do something about it, then it's up to the Venezuelan people to save themselves. And I would tell the Venezuelan people, you're going to have to save yourselves because Americans are overfed, ignorant babies. Black people are now pro-war because we feel like we're in it. And let me tell you something. To be a true American citizen, to be a true descendant of American slaves, to be fully integrated into the American economy and the American politics as black people, we have to become traitors of all other black people everywhere else in the world. You cannot be loyal to America and loyal to humanity. I said it. You cannot be loyalty and supportive of the policies of the United States and be a humane, just, righteous, or whatever other kind of person you imagine yourself to be. Howard Zinn said before he died, you can't be neutral on a speeding train. So you are complicit, unless you're in open opposition. that blood is on your hand. It really disgusts me. And I can get a rally to cancel out Mayweather, and Mayweather's disgusting. Don't get me wrong. But people, damn, what for do? But I digress. And also, it maybe y'all don't care about the Mexicans. Because anything south of the border, we talked about this. The demographics of Venezuela, 16% African, which is a hustle. Because 51% of the people in Venezuela, 51.6 if we have to be precise, identify as mestizos or morenos. And a mestizo or a moreno is anybody with African, with a mixture of a various concentration of African, Amerindian, I don't know why they don't call them Native Americans, but Amerindian and European conquistador blood. That's over half the population. Only 2.7% of the population is actually natives. So, you think the United States was less efficient in slaughtering. That's why, a lot of these Latin countries are racist AF. That's why when somebody come here and say, oh, I'm Hispanic, you should support me. Like down in their own countries, they're white, racist, oppressive, and all that. But then they come here and all of a sudden, they adopt a new identity in order to win our sympathy. So I continue. So the demographics there is we got a significant number of our own people there. Because many people, they might be Moreno or Mestizos is south of the border. As soon as they cross that southern border, they become black. And they are literally lynching black people in the streets because, of course, black people being the most progressive and the most humane people support the Chavistas. They are Bolivarians. So they support the progressive revolutionary socialist government and policies. In fact, many of our people down there don't think that the government goes far enough. So they are literally setting our people ablaze on the street. And if you got the kind of stomach to see it, I've seen the video where there are white Venezuelans who set a black man on fire and watch him burn. And when the black man tries to, run out of the and get some aid to put the flames out, they push him back to the center of the circle. But it's all for American freedom. And we all know, since Venezuela is reported to have the largest oil reserves, and even John Bolton, another mass murderer, genocidist, stated that we're going there to get that oil. There have been a number, for over 20 years, since the beginning of the Bolivarian Revolution, there have been a number of assassinations, failed coup attempts, there's been bribery. The United States has engaged in a criminal campaign against that nation, at the same time talking about democracy. And we're all complicit. And you even got so-called liberals. Well, Venezuela's misgoverned. If a nation being misgoverned justified invading it, then why hasn't the United States been invaded? Give me a nation that has been more misgoverned, that has violated more of its own and international laws than the United States. I'll wait. The reason why people don't care is because the United States steals and robs at such a scale that it's able to trickle down some benefit to the so-called middle class. And the United States has the most sophisticated system of mass indoctrination that has ever been developed by any system in the history of human existence. So Americans are overfed on toxic food and over-indoctrinated on misinformation. And based on the structure of this government, believe it or not, the United States is still very vulnerable to public sentiment. If the public got organized, if a small percentage of the public got organized, you could still have great impact on U.S. policy. You don't believe me? Look at New York City right now. They ousted Amazon. They kicked Amazon out. Now it upset me because I have to be. Like I said, I'm not the most righteous man. When Amazon announced that it was going to DC to the DMV area, it was open. It was going to split its headquarters. They're going to put half of it in New York and half of it in the DMV area. And New Yorkers are like, hell to the no. Now I think New York's fight against these corporate incursion is too little, too late. They let Disney take over 42nd Street. I think it's too little, too late, but still, it's a victory. But now the problem is Amazon might pivot back to Chicago, and we already got that ridiculous ass, disgusting ass Obama Center, that monument to a man's talk about toxic masculinity. If Obama's not in your toxic masculinity, then you ain't really about justice. But so we might have to mount our own anti-Amazon fight. We might talk more about that, the corporate hustle and welfare. But anyway, right now it's 808, TR 808. That's D Nice, my theme music by D Nice. He used to call himself the human 808. But it is 808 in the AM. You're listening to the Bro Diallo Show. I'm broadcasting from Q4 Studios in the city of Chirac, state of Illinois, United States of America, on the dying, overexploited, underappreciated planet Earth. You can listen to me at q4.org. Anywhere in the world, you just go to the Q4 website, QUE, the number 4.org. You can also find Q4 Radio on the TuneIn app and iTunes Radio. And of course, if you are in the city of Chirac alongside me, you can find me broadcasting AM 1680. And we're going to proceed. Also, let me make an appeal. You might notice I am not currently on Facebook. I usually broadcast on YouTube and Facebook as I broadcast across the airways to try to have its reach. But I got this janky little old thing that I use for Facebook, and the camera, it's just died. It's crashing. It's a phone that's many years old, and it doesn't work. So I can't get on. Times are hard, Pandit Boulevard. And that's why I need support so I can upgrade and do things better, maybe even get hire a producer or something to keep the show afloat, but I don't even make enough, to where I don't even have to supplement the show. So please go to DialloKenyatta.com. You can make a one-time donation, or you can become a long-term Patreon supporter. Social media is choking off dissident voices. My main Facebook account is suspended. Now even my blog, for the first time, my blog is being censored. They're deleting content. I wrote a long article, and it kind of pisses me off. That's why I don't even want to post anything anywhere on the internet anymore, except my own website, because, I wrote a long post about the history of pedophilia in Western culture and pederasty, in everything from Greco-Roman culture to the pederasty and pedophilia embedded in the Abrahamic religions. And I shared some images, and the images I shared were images from frescoes and carvings and statues and paintings from the Greco-Roman era, from the European Renaissance. These are all paintings or carvings that you could go to any high-scale museum or art gallery and see, that are on display, that you could go Google right now. And I shared those in this, to show how this was central to the, anyway, they took it down. They snatched that down and said it was inappropriate content. And so now, Facebook suspended everywhere you go. If you notice, Wednesday, you can go back and see this on YouTube, I was talking about Zionism. And I was talking about how Zionists and how the Zionist movement and the state of Israel doesn't just engage in genocidal repression of the Palestinians, but their long relationship with apartheid South Africa and other neo-colonial regimes on the African continent, about how the nation of Israel trains U.S. police officers in crowd control and surveillance techniques, how U.S. officers get grants to go to Israel to learn how to engage literally in repression and oppression and come back and practice that in our streets. And in the middle of my discussion, YouTube just dropped it. And that hadn't happened before. So the only way to circumvent that is to build up progressive, independent, conscious media. And we are too comfortable on relying. We got too many of our archives on these platforms. We might have to go back to DVDs, CDs, external hard drive. We're going to have to do something. But one of the small things you could do, you can go subscribe to my page. You can go make a contribution if you're in a position to make a contribution. Just do what you can to support me and progressive conscious media overall. And don't take it for granted. There was a time where there were literally dozens of independent progressive magazines, small black bookstores, small black publishers. You know, even Amos Wilson published all his books, the African World Info Systems. Him and Marimba Ani would work together. And I was spoiled. There was so much progressive conscious music, so much really enlightened black scholarship and publishing, the Black Scholar Journal, you know, African Business and Culture, and it's all gone. There are literally thousands of progressive, conscious, pan-African, revolutionary media outlets and conduits that are poof, gone. And if the Bro Diallo, well, I'll join those ranks. And it ain't just black folks. You know, Norman Goldman. There was a show that mainly focused on civics, basically on explaining the law and civics and how the government violates its own laws. He was the guy, the Norman Goldman show. He came up, work with the facts, live with the truth. And he was nonpartisan. He went as hard against Democrats as that. Now he's going off the air for lack of support. Now, you know, I mean, black folks, I don't think he had a large black fan base, but white folks calling in now that he's gone off the air, weeping and wailing and moaning and gnashing their teeth. Oh, we're going to miss you. Oh, it's like losing a family member. And y'all going to let me go out like that too? And there's always people get love when they go off. Gil Scott-Heron literally lived in a flop house. You know, and Gil Scott-Heron didn't own his own music and his own masters. And you go to the record store and you open up the album liners and it'd be written in Japanese. Flying Dutchman owned his music, and then Flying Dutchman was bought by some Japanese conglomerate, then some other buyout, and just went on. And I go to a Gil Scott-Heron show and it'd be like 3 black people there. But after he died, in squalor and poverty, that's when everybody was remembering Gil Scott-Heron. Y'all, we got to stop doing like this. We got to support people while they're here. We got to appreciate what we got before we lose it. And we got to, you know, and I ain't even saying buy black. I'm not even saying support me because I'm black. I'm saying if you think this is quality, if you think the voice that my voice is something that should be available for the airwaves. And I try to get out as many places. I know the AM signal here in Chicago is not that strong. That's why I try to get on iTunes, TuneIn, the website, DialloKenyatta.com, YouTube. I try to do Facebook, but my little device for Facebook is not working this morning. I'll go home, try to restart it, see what's wrong with it. But none of this can be done without resources. My time is donated, but nobody else ain't donating nothing else to this show but me. And I don't think it's fair that I have to ask my wife and we have to come together and budget this show and supplement this show. We have enough listeners that if everybody just kicked in $1 a month, we would be well sustained. So please go subscribe. I don't like taking time out of the show to make these appeals, but I don't have a choice, because if I don't take time off to make these shows, to make these appeals to my listeners, I will not have a show. Yeah, and I'm not front. It's not like Bro Diallo's gonna go live under a bridge if the show goes off the air. But I still think there will be, there will be a loss. There's not enough voices. And then all black voices ain't quality black voices. All black voices ain't honest black voices. You got a lot of parasitic, opportunistic, and demagogic black people claiming to be Pan-Africanists, claiming to tell the people the truth. So I ain't even saying we need black voices. We need quality Pan-African conscious voices of, by, and for the people. Not black voices that go from I'm a pimp, I'm a Pan-African, I'm an ADOS like Tariq. Backstabbing, inconsistent. But I digress. Let's go on. The topic today is the Fiat Matrix. I want to talk about the Fiat Matrix because all the major news outlets reported that the United States national debt has retreated, has increased, has ballooned to $22.2 trillion. And two of that $1 trillion came under the relatively short Trump regime. Trump has added more to the deficit and more to the national debt in the shortest amount of time than any administration since the Depression era, essential non-war era. Because when it's active now, the United States is at war, but the United States is not at war because there's no formal declaration of war. You explain that to me. Why? I'm not as smart as white folks. I don't know how that happens. But somehow that works out in the Western world white logic. So anyway, everybody's hooping and hollering, and then there came another announcement. More than 3 million Americans are more than 3 months, no, 7, is it 7 or 3 million? I get the numbers mixed up. It's 7 million Americans that are more than 3 months behind on their mortgage, something like that. So they're saying there's an impending financial crisis looming. There's a financial crisis looming on the horizon. And let me tell you something. Since 1930, every single crash, every single crisis has been an artificial manufactured, if not planned and premeditated fact. And let me tell you something about money. Money is fiction. Every now and then, every couple of weeks, I go online and I look at printing press. I look at the stamps, and I look at, well, it's not even paper. Money isn't really paper. If you really looked at it on a molecular level, our money is more akin to our money. The currency, the U.S. currency. I'm not supposed to say our money, our government, our troops, our military. It's the government, the military. But anyway, the money is more akin to fabric. It has more of a molecular structure of fabric than of paper. But that's a small, some people really get off on that little details. Coin collectors and people who are into currency. But the bottom line is, it's a manufactured nothing, made from nothing, that means nothing. It is a fiat currency. The US dollar is a fiat currency, right? What does that mean? What is fiat? Fiat is a money system that is based on the standing of the government that issues it. That means that the US dollar represents the level of trust and confidence that people have in the US government. That's all it is. That's all it's based on. And even they're honest. If you follow the financial media, if you follow the Wall Street Journal and other, they talk about consumer confidence. They never talk about supply or demand. They never talk about that. They talk about consumer confidence, investor confidence. They don't talk about material scarcity, because this is a confidence game, or for short, a con game. You have heard the term con man. The con is short for confidence. They used to be called confidence men, because what they would do in order to swindle you, they had to increase your confidence. They wanted you to trust them. Trump is a con man. He had a lot of stupid people. 99% of them were white, but a few black people sprinkled in there. He had a lot of stupid people that had confidence in his ability to drain the swamp, to make good deals, to bring back coal, and to bring jobs and restore America's greatness. He was able to make people confident of that. And that's all a confidence man does. It doesn't matter if he's trying to seduce you into bed or take your fortune and pick your pockets. It doesn't matter what a con man or con woman is trying to do. Without instilling confidence in you, trust, some type of connection, then they can't run the con. People you don't trust generally are not in a position to con you. And if you don't trust people, then they have to do what they call guerrilla pimping. They have to strong arm you. But it's the same outcome. If I'm a con man and I can get you to trust me and you sign your check over to me because I tell you I'm going to quadruple double your check, get you some cryptocurrency, get you paid, get you a Lexus, and you were like, I believe in you. And I come and I'm like, look at my fake diamonds. Look at my fake Gucci. Look at all my fake material wealth. And you can be wealthy like me. You have to trust me and give me your money. Or there's a magical being in the stars that talks to me and through me, and that magical being will bless you if you know the secret. If you worship him and pay me, that you have confidence in me. But if you don't have confidence in me, I come up to you and be like, give me some money, and you give me the side eye. It's like, you can't do for me what you got. You can't give me nothing. Then I pull out the gat, click, clack, and that's how. And then I rob you with the gat. Same outcome. You get swindled out of your money. I get from you without returning what I promised to you. But we're more comfortable with being conned than being robbed, even though it's pretty much the same outcome. Well, with the con, there's also potential for violence, but with robbery and things of that nature, there's more of a direct threat of violence. But most con men will fall to violence once they lose the confidence. So fiat currency is con currency. Now, don't get me wrong. Based on everything I said, if I was president, if I took over an African nation, if I took over a Caribbean nation, by taking over, I mean democratically elected, of course, or by any other means, shoot. I'm done playing. John G. Jackson said, good men need to learn to love cutting throats as much as wicked men love to cut throats if we intend to win this. So, whatever. If I somehow became president, prime minister, ruler, king, god of a nation, I would sustain a fiat currency. I would not try to go to a gold standard or silver standard or precious metal standard. And as much as people like to talk about the gold standard, anytime you have anyone talking about a U.S. economy returning to a gold standard, just know that you're looking at an idiot that knows nothing of economics, let alone history. Because you'll find that since 1930, the United States has been off of the gold standard. Now, there was still the gold exchange rate in the 1930s, meaning that you could take U.S. currency and exchange it for gold. It was pegged to gold. So even though it wasn't on the gold stand, let's go to the notes. I don't want to get this wrong because I know some of y'all. So there was an exchange. The U.S. was pegged to gold. But we went off of the gold exchange in 1930, and we went off of the gold standard in 1970. And you'll find that when the U.S., because a lot of people, we have these fantasies about past. You got a lot of people make America great again, even though America was never great. And I ain't even talking about black folks. Let's take black folks out of the equation. When they say America was great, that prior to the New Deal, prior to World War II, most white people were peasants. White people, there was no child labor restrictions. White people were dying of diseases related to malnutrition, had rickets, lived in shanty and squalor. The only thing the average white person had in America was white skin. And so you could go out and accost, molest, murder, and harass black people with impunity. But other than that, those white people that were able to do that, they lived in dirt floor shacks using outhouses. They didn't have electricity. They didn't have running water. They didn't have formal education. They didn't have their teeth. So those brutal, horrible white people were impoverished, brutal, horrible white people. It was not all good for you. But some white folks will say, hell, I'll exchange my middle class living if I have a right to accost black people with impunity. Some white folks are that sick, or that they're willing to return to the Gilded Age if they get to harass, murder, and mutilate black folks with impunity. That's worth more than gold to some people. They're really that psychopathic. Go read Urugu. Go read The Psychopathic Racial Personality. Go read Iceman's Inheritance. I know I'm redundant on some of these books, but some of these books need to be part of the black canon. Every black person needs to know those books. But That's the same thing with the gold standard. People have this fake memory about the glorious past. How glorious the past was. And not just political past. Now, Make America Great Again is historical and political revisionism or nostalgism. Well, make U.S. currency great again. They think we need to go back to the gold standard. We need to have gold back in the U.S. economy. Those people are make U.S. currency great again are just as delusional. If you go back I ain't even got to say it. Just go Google. When the U.S. was on the gold standard, there was much more economic instability. And now I'm not a conservative. I'm not speaking that, oh, we need economic stability. I'm not so pro economic stability. I'm not anti-economic stability. I think the whole system should be overthrown. I think the whole system is illegitimate. But put that aside and just looking at the system for what it was. The gold standard was not stabilizing. The gold standard was not free of high levels of corruption, disruption, and manipulation. In fact, the gold standard currency was more open to manipulation than fiat currency. And you already see how easily manipulated fiat currency markets are. And they got graphs and pie charts coming out your ears. I'm not going to bore you with it. But when you look at the gold standard, the graph goes up and down, peaks and lows, peaks and lows, peaks and valleys. But when it was in 1930 and 1970, you see, even though there are much less volatility in the market. It's much easier to manipulate a precious metal market and to hoard a precious metal. Now, I understand. I say this all the time. And I try to protect white folks' feelings because when I say white folks, we know it ain't all white folks, but hell, it's enough white folks. But I say this all the time. It appears, historically, that white people are not content with doing things the wrong way. They have to do things the absolute worst way. And I don't understand this phenomenon, but I ain't going to deny it when it's staring me in the face, when it's killing my people. White people are not content with doing things the wrong way. They feel compelled to do things the worst way. Wrong is not enough. It has to be the worst wrong way or the wrong worst way. I don't understand this, but that's how they do. So, of course, when they go from when they're on the gold standard, it's horrible, it's nightmarish, it's unstable, it's exploitative, it's hierarchical. And then when they went over to fiat currency, it didn't change the leadership or the rulers. So the same people that ruled over and were dominating the gold or precious metal-based currency are dominating the fiat currency. So there are a lot of problems there. But again, currency is a tool. It's a medium of exchange. It is not wealth. It is a representation of wealth. So you don't have to abandon the tool simply because the person wielding or controlling the tool has done bad with it. You know, if you get some psychopath that runs around bashing people in the head with hammers, are you going to say the hammer is bad and we should not use hammers? Same thing. So fiat currency can be used to regulate the exchange of goods and services. It's an effective tool. It's a rational tool if used in a just way. And if you start to lock up the manipulators, the capitalists, the investor class, but I digress. The fiat currency is not inherently bad. It's not inherently wrong. But the way it's done a fiat currency under a socialist, scientific socialist system is just fine. There's no need to return to a gold standard. And if you really, all these people talking about the gold standard, they don't study the history. And they might look at just the currency. Well, when the currency was on a gold standard, that means something backed it up. You could take a quarter and go and exchange it for metal. And the U.S. couldn't print any more money than it had in gold reserves. And so that was a proper it was not a regulator of the economy. Go back and look at the U.S. economy before 1930 and tell me that's an economy that you would want to live under, that you think is functional, that you think was stable. Go back and look at the United States in the roaring 20s. Go back. Go back to the 1800s and look at how many economic collapses and depressions back when the U.S. was on the gold standard. Because it doesn't matter if you're under a capitalist economy, it doesn't matter if you're on the gold standard or on fiat currency. It's going to be all effed up for the majority and only beneficial for the masses. Same thing. When you have socialism on a, well, again, I think a fiat, when you look at the rates of production, resource extraction, population expansion, it makes more sense and it's more functional to be on a fiat currency. I am an advocate of fiat currency. If I had under a socialist system, under a scientific socialist system, I would not try to return to a gold standard. That being said, I just want you to know, my main point about all this, I didn't mean to turn this into a, but a lot of people just like to sound hip. You got a lot of people like, when they say gold standard, they feel like they're above and thinking above and beyond the rest of us. They think they're above and beyond the rest of us. But I think understanding that the gold, the fiat currency is based on the confidence that the people have in the state that issues it. If we understand that, we can get over a lot of this money mysticism. We can stop thinking about, oh, this person has a lot of money. They must be great. They must be smart. They must be beautiful. Trump has blown all that up. You can be an idiot. You can be ugly. You can be evil. You can be lazy slob. You can be the biggest bungler, the poorest negotiator, and the most unoriginal thinker, non-thinker in the world and still be a billionaire. Trump has taken away the myth of what it means to be rich or to get rich in the world. He's taken away, he's eroded that myth that the poor people should be in reverence of rich people. F them. They're parasites. So now that we understand it's a fiat currency that's printed out or manufactured, woven, just like your sweater. That currency is nothing to be mystical about, that it really means it's a whole bunch of nothing. It is what we say it is. Currency, money, value, worth is what we say it is when it comes to currency and worth, earnings, and value and cost. It's whatever we say it is. We have the power. Just the other day, I was talking to Chris Marshall and China Fox. And we were talking about setting up protocol standards and structures for revolutionary governance and revolutionary ideology and movements. And some guy came and was like, who are you to say that? Who has a right to do that? And I'm like, we have a right to do it. I'm like, who had a right? Who gave George Washington the right to be president? Who gave the founding fathers the right, the founding rapists, the founding enslavers, the right to write the Constitution of the land? Give yourself the right. And there are no chosen people. As Dr. John Henry Clark, all chosen people chose them damn selves. All chosen people chose themselves. There is no higher power from on high that chose. Even when you go out and get your certification, as Umar likes to brag that he's a certified psychologist. Who sat down, okay, this is what you need to be certified. You need to take these classes. You need this amount of clinical instruction. You need this, this, and that. Somebody sat there and just pulled it out of their rectums. Everything that's written down was pulled out of somebody's rectum. And then the rest of us can look at it and say, hey, well, just pull it out of their minds. Let me not be vulgar. Just made up. Now, you can use data. You can use stats. You can use empirical evidence. There's all other things you can to infuse your thing. But ultimately, the way it's put together and the way it's carried out, it's all up to us. So we don't need to get it bent out of shape. So when people are crying about, oh, $2.2 trillion, all this debt, oh. Dick Cheney said one thing that I agree with in the whole 8 years he was vice president. He said deficits don't matter. Debt don't matter. The U.S. debt, none of that matters. That's for you cotton pickers, for you peasants, for you serfs, for you wage slaves. That's something y'all holler about. The elites don't give a damn. Why don't they give a damn? Ask yourself. The U.S. Let me just say, because I think I'm getting this wrong. Let me just check this. It's in my notes. 22 trillion, yes, $22.2 trillion. Man, that's a lot. Oh, ooh, and y'all gonna lose sleep over that. Oh, look, the national debt. Ooh, okay, the U.S. owes $2.2 trillion. Who does the United States owe its debt to? 70% of U.S. debt is owed to the United States. 70% of the U.S. debt is owed to themselves. And then, y'all always talk about China. Oh, China's taking over. China owns America. China. China owns 5.6% of U.S. debt, which is $1.18 trillion. The United States could pay off debt to China right now, could write a check and not think about it. They like to keep that, oh, China, looming China. China any day now is going to take over the world. Remember, back in the 90s and the 80s, it was Japan. Japan's taking over. Japanese cars, Japanese cameras. Japanese are going to take over the world. And remember, white folks told us, the Russians are going to take over the world. That's another con game. The people who have taken over the world are the United States and Western Europe. They run the world. And they're the ones out here causing all this pain and suffering. But they have to tell us who sit in the belly of the beast, they want us to continue to shop, to continue to vote, to continue to argue about who wants a dumbass Grammy, and not focus on it, because we, being inside the belly of the beast, do present a potential threat. And if they can keep their own citizens pacified, that would allow them more leeway to commit atrocities around the world. So they're always telling you, we have to tax you, we have to police you, we have to survey you, we have to deny you free health care, we have to deny you free education. We have to do this because we need your money. We need to rape and exploit you in order to protect you from some foreign influence. And there's always an enemy at the gates. There's always Mexicans at the southern borders. There are always Chinese coming in submarines. There's always Russians coming through Alaska and Canada. There's always some ominous threat. When I tell you white folks every damn day, the only threat to you white folks is other white folks. Your own elite, your fellow American citizens, your fellow British, French, and German elites. That's the only threat to you. But if I'm, again, that's the con man. I'm your friend. That guy over there is your enemy. The black guy's your enemy. The Mexican, the Honduran, the Russian, the communist, those are your enemy. While they got their hands in your pocket and you, USA, while you both hands in the air screaming USA, the Koch brothers and the other white elites who you look up to, who you vote for, Donald Trump, got their hands in both your pockets. And if you're a woman, they got their hands in other places too. But I digress. China, big boogeyman China only owns 5.6% of U.S. debt. Japan owns another 5% of U.S. debt. Japan and China. Japan has been under stagflation. Japan does not have a military. Japan, and I tell you all the time, guess what? The nation, that third highest nation that holds U.S. debt, Brazil. Brazil holds 1.4% of U.S. debt. Crumbs. And is the U.S. going to invade itself? The U.S. debt is locked up in bonds, and again, it's a fiat system. So they could pay off China in a day, but they like to keep the China threat. But the majority, when you say everything's made in China, right, things are made in China. Not because China's so dominant. Things are made in China because U.S. corporations and European corporations are exploiting Chinese labor. And the communist leaders of China are like, yes, exploit our workers and enrich us. The elites are united all over the globe, while us working class and us poor people, us oppressed people, we're trying to separate ourselves, build walls between each other, and say, well, I'm an American descendant of slave. You're a Caribbean descendant of slave. You're a colonial victim in Africa. We're all different and separated. The Chinese elite, the European elite, the Latin American elite, even the punk-ass African elite and the European elites, they all work together. Noam Chomsky has been teaching about this for half a century. He talks about amongst the elites, they practice socialism. He even wrote a book called Socialism for the Few. Let me see if that book is still in print. It's socialism. Well, anyway. He said the socialists for the few. Well, you can find lectures online. Well, anyway, these people all work together. And they pretend like they're against each other. You got African parasites running all over the African country, telling African citizens that they're going to fight like Mugabe. I'm not a supporter of Mugabe, but people love Mugabe because Mugabe was like, I'm going to protect Africa from Europe. I'm going to protect Africa from Germany and France. I'm going to protect Africa from the homosexuals and the degeneracy of the West. The whole time him and his wife is balling out in the Gucci store. Balling out. Wearing all the finest designs made by gay Italian designers. And black men in the United States was beating their chest like, yeah, Mugabe's an alpha male. He's told the white man to kiss his butt. You got Latin American dictators. You got Arab in the Arab world. A bunch of Arab oligarchs and parasites telling the Arab world they're going to protect Islam from the decadency of the West while they're robbing their people. You got American billionaires telling Americans, we're going to protect you from all these foreign lazy people that want to come here and take your hard-earned tax dollar. They running the same damn hustle. The elites in every continent are running the same damn hustle, pretending to protect the people while they rob the people. And they tell them any day now there's going to be major catastrophe. So the majority of U.S. debt is owned by the U.S. It's locked up in the Social Security Fund, pension holders, the bond system, the vast majority of that debt. The U.S. owes to itself. So what does that mean when you owe a debt to yourself? That means you can set the terms and conditions. You know, they have all these economic gurus that tell poor people how to live under wage slavery. Put yourself, owe yourself, put away a little something for yourself, blah, blah, blah. They tell you the country could do the same thing. The U.S. can have what is called a debt jubilee, cancel the debt, restructure the debt, extend the terms and conditions or change the terms and conditions of the debt. They can do anything. The debt is not the damn problem. The real problem in the United States is the concentration of fiat, the concentration of wealth, which creates a great societal imbalance. And then there are policies that allow for people of means, the people of wealth, the billionaires, to unduly influence the political system. That's the problem. But they'll have you say, no, we're $2.2 trillion in debt. And what do you have to do? You have to defund education. You have to defund healthcare. You have to defund social programs. You have to defund housing programs. That's why they let the debt balloon. You never hear them say, oh, we got to decommission aircraft carrier. We got to decommission a nuclear submarine. We got to shut down a foreign military base. There is always and will always be money for warfare, mass slaughter, because that's how the rich parasites keep the money flowing through military means. If it wasn't for the U.S. military empire, there would be no Google, there would be no Apple, there would be no major multinational corporations, because people overseas would have been like, you're not coming here stealing our resources. You're not coming here putting my children into sweatshops. Get the hell out of here. So every nation where you have U.S. overseas companies making big money, the U.S. military has gone there to slaughter and subdue this population. And if the U.S. military doesn't do it directly, they arm right-wing guerrillas like the Contra rebels, like ISIS, to destabilize. And notice how ISIS just is evolving. They have a brand new post-ISIS ISIS. Remember, it was the Mujahideen, then it was Al-Qaeda. They always evolving these, and they all on the U.S. payroll. The U.S. has to manufacture its enemies to fight because normal people don't behave like these parasites. So don't stop falling for the damn okie doke. And let me tell you something else. There used to be scarcity. Before capitalism, there used to be scarcity. There used to be lack, times of what you would call a depression. But in the past, prior to capitalism, prior to European overthrow and European hegemony across the world, a scarcity meant you literally had a deficit in material. So if you were going to have a scarcity of food, that means you had a crop failure, or there was sometimes a breakdown in the trade routes where they literally could not bring the food to where the people were. There was some obstruction, some major road, some major conflict or warfare. A major unforeseen cataclysmic avalanche or volcano. And then people would be like, there's less food. So we have to start to ration the food. We have to figure out, find new food sources. We might have to up and migrate somewhere because we have a depression. So the economy that was based on real goods and real services. Sometimes there would be a war and all the able-bodied men would go off to fight the war. And then you didn't have blacksmiths, you didn't have the tailors and the weavers and all the people who did the industrial work. So you would have a deficit in clothing or a deficit in textiles, a deficit in wood or metal goods until you were able to train up new people or if there was some massive disease outbreak. So there was economic instability, there was lack in the past, but it was always based on a material issue. Nowadays, now we have depressions, economic downturns, we have starvations, even though we have an abundance of material. People are starving when there's more than enough food to feed the whole planet 3 times over. People are lacking shelter when there is more than enough housing. People don't have fuel or energy or electricity when there is more than enough power generated on the planet. So now modern day deficits, modern day depressions, modern day famines are all manufactured. It's manufactured scarcity because the reason they have to manufacture scarcity and they have to build in obsolescence into the system is so that you wouldn't be a Bill Gates or a Jeff Bezos or Donald Trump's. You wouldn't have the massive accumulation. Right now, you have the wealthiest corporations and the wealthiest individuals in the history of humanity. There have never been people as rich as they are today. Is that because billionaires in 2020 and billionaires in 1919 were smarter than the industrial capitalists of 1819 or 1919? Or corporations just that much more clever now than they were back then? No. Every single multinational corporation has not gotten rich by innovating and all that. They get rich through public policy, from being allowed to hold on to deny payments, insurance, and support for its workers, through legislating the robbery of the people and the land. The internet, all these internet moguls. If the internet moguls had to truly do the true R&D, all of the R&D and infrastructure of the internet was financed by the public through socialism. And then they came in on top of this socialist public input and were able to get private gains from a public infrastructure. That is parasite. That is a parasite. That is exploitation. That is what capitalism is. Private gains from public inputs. That's all capitalism is. Capitalism does not create wealth. It concentrates wealth. So just know when they start talking about, oh, there's a looming collapse, when they start, because you know why there's going to be an economic collapse? Because the workers have found their power. And that's what will bring about an economic downfall and downturn more than anything. When workers figure out, damn, the government was shut down for a month. And after 2 days of workers saying, tell you what, we're staying home. We're not going to work. Oh, let's end the deficit. You got teachers just figuring it out after almost 40 years. Oh, we could just not come to work when the conditions and the pay is not what we want. We all sit our asses home and the system shuts down. And Donald Trump and Jeff Bezos and all the policemen and all these mighty powerful people that got power over us, they don't have any real power when we organize and stand together. Their power becomes null and void. So then they say, we're going to make the economy scream like they're doing in Venezuela. They will starve off the people. Because what do hungry people do? The late great Dick Gregory said, hungry people don't ask questions. When you get hungry, your mind becomes less rational. And that's when we start to cannibalize and fight against each other. When we start pointing fingers at each other. You're a burden on the system. You're on the welfare. You had a bankruptcy. You had a foreclosure. You're less than human. Your car got repossessed. And we start to attack each other. And that's why they want to maintain manipulation of the currency, because they'll make us scream. They'll constrict our abilities to function. And people become more antagonistic when there's a time of lack. But the lack, when they say there's an economic shutdown, there's an economic depression. Is the lumber still there? Yes. Are the factories still there? Yes. Is the electricity still there? Yes. Are all the raw materials we need to do productive work still available? Yes. Then why is there an economic shutdown? Well, the lenders won't give credit. And if lenders don't give credit, then investors don't invest. And if the investors don't invest, then there's no revenue to fund the work. You don't need revenue to fund the work. I could get up and just go do the work. And that's how sometimes people do. In certain strikes, like in Argentina, they said, oh, we're shutting down the country. There's no money. There's no investment. And the people got up and went to work anyway. And they made the goods. And they said, if there's no money to buy the goods, we will trade the goods. You watch my child, I'll give you some bread. You give me some bread, I'll mend your shoes. You mend my shoes, I'll give you some fish. You give me some fish, I'll do your roof repair. And they had to turn it, oh, whoa, wait, there's no money here. Where's the fiat? We got to drop fiat on their head. That's primitive. You're some kind of primitive economy? Backwards? Stop falling for the money matrix. The only value in this system is not even value in the land. Go read Claude Anderson. The land in America ain't worth nothing. The value is in us, our minds, and our flesh. And we increase value as to our willingness to cooperate and work together. Stop falling for the okie doke. Bro Diallo Show. Break free of the fiat matrix. Money is an illusion. And it is an illusion that the people can wrest control over from the parasites. Nobody's done $1 million worth of work. Every single multimillionaire, every single billionaire is a parasite that we can turn them over. The elites, it's 1%. We can whoop their ass. If we organize 5%, we're more than 5 times bigger than the elites. So we need analysis, we need the consciousness, and we need organization. Organize. I got to get out of here. Bro Diallo Show, Q4 Radio. Please go to DialloKenyatta.com. Go to Patreon/Diallo. Support, share, subscribe to the YouTube and all of that. And I will be back here. Oh, we're going to have a Q&A session. I don't think I'll be live. There will be a pre-recorded show aired on Monday, but Monday evening there will be a Q&A session. I believe that's session 11 or 10 of the Q&A, so you can go on YouTube and ask me direct questions, and I will answer them post-haste. Thanks again for listening. I appreciate all of y'all, especially my Patreon supporters, and I know I ain't even gonna make no promises. I'm gonna show you better than I can tell you. Q4 Radio, Bro Diallo Show.